I did it. I successfully paraglided for the very first time. So back in June of 2018, I learned how to fly powered paragliders. When I came home from training, there was about a 6-month waiting period for my paramotor to be delivered, so I ended up ordering a paragliding wing and started running off all of the hills that were close to where I live. Eventually, I hiked up a mountain and ran off with this paraglider, not really knowing what I was doing. It scared the crap out of me. The wing was surging all over the place. I swore that if I survived, I would never put myself in a situation that could get me killed purely from a lack of understanding. I glided for just over 5 minutes through windy draws carved into the mountain until I eventually touched down gracefully in a river bottom. My paramotor was eventually delivered, and I've flown just about every flyable day since. And occasionally, I would fly my paramotor out to these local ridges and try to stay in the lift. However, I was too heavily loaded with a 75-pound paramotor on my back and a reflex wing that was too small to begin with, even if I didn't have the paramotor on my back. At best, my rate of descent was reduced, but I was still going down. Fast forward to 2021, and a good friend of the family, Bob Peliquin, offered to teach me how to fly paragliders off of the coast of Santa Barbara, California. And armed with my paramotor experience, I spent 2 full days performing everything that student paraglider pilots are expected to perform during their initial training. And all I had left to do was fly off the mountain in Santa Barbara in order to get certified. But the weather turned for the worst, and the opportunity was lost. But 2022 arrived, and my New Year's resolution was made. I would become a successful paraglider pilot. I would consider myself successful in this goal if I could start by ridge soaring with top landings and ride a thermal for at least 1,000 feet above where I had entered it. Stay tuned for that one. But in this video, I submit my proof that I officially no longer suck at paragliding. And here is my ridge soaring experience from yesterday. I ordered a brand spanking new BGD Base 2 in the size medium large. At my 210-pound all-up weight, this puts me somewhere near the top of the weight range, but at least I wasn't way outside of it like I was with my 23-meter Judec Universal that I'd made several attempts on in the past. The launch was the most challenging part of this flight. Because of the strong winds on the ridge, my glider inflated with so much intensity that it pulled me back and I jammed my right hand down to keep the glider overhead. As the wing leveled, the lift plucked me into the air and I spun around to face the correct direction.
You're doing it! This is so great!
The Base 2 is a high ENB rated paraglider, which is significantly different from a low rating ENB glider. According to people who are significantly more experienced than I am, high Bs tend to move quite a bit more than the low Bs. In the right hands, this feedback can be very good information to the paraglider pilot, but in the wrong hands, it can just be nerve-wracking. Additionally, high Bs are usually more efficient, capable of staying up in lighter conditions that would cause an equally sized low B to sink out. I ended up going with the high B because I have several hundred hours on a twitchy paramotor wing, so the feedback could prove helpful to me as I continue to fly paragliders. Starting out, the air was pretty smooth, so I pulled out my speed bar and was surprised at how timid the effect was compared to the effect on my much more advanced and heavily loaded paramotor gliders. In hindsight, it makes perfect sense. My 18-meter warp has an exhilarating drop when the bar is pushed, but the pulley-to-pulley length is also quite a bit longer on those paramotor wings. On this new glider, I noticed that I was descending faster with the speed bar, but not like a thrill ride. Even with the terrain in close proximity, I didn't feel like my forward speed changed a whole lot, but it was enough to convince me that I could penetrate a headwind if I started to get blown backwards. I practiced turns with the rear risers to see how little height I could lose in the turn, and I found that in spite of being more efficient, it seemed to cost me more height since the circumference of the turn was a lot bigger, taking me further from the ridge where the rising air seemed to be the strongest. Had this been a mountain with a lift band that was extended further off of the ridge, I believe that using the rear risers to turn would have been the most efficient for switchbacks. Throughout this flight, I took 3 asymmetric collapses, but unfortunately I didn't get a clean shot of any of them.
Jesus!
I was pleased with how little the glider was actually affected by the collapse. It seemed to continue flying straight with no changes in my altitude. The cause of the collapses were embedded thermals coming off the ridge, and I only know that because I had a really awesome phone call with my friend Lee Boone afterwards, who filled me in on all of this.
I'm standing here, I top landed and I'm kiting it. I did it!
You did it! You gonna go up again?
Oh, it's starting to get lifty.
A cold front was inbound to our location, and the wind started to get stronger. The glider started getting twitchy in a way that reminded me of that fateful 2018 run off the mountain. Although I felt much more confident, I decided not to push my luck and bring it in for one more top landing. I pushed behind the ridge about 200 feet to get out of the lift, then pulled the brake about 6 inches or so to slow my forward progress. I continued to sink, and when I was about 15 feet off the ground, I went hands up to give myself enough airspeed for the landing. Clint came running over to me to help me away from the sage bushes, but the conditions were so strong at that point that he basically helped me stay put. Well, kind of. And that's my first official paragliding flight, so please let me know how you think I did down below. I'm totally open to your critiques and comments, even if they're harsh. By the way, several of you have been patiently waiting for my new tandem trike review to come out, and it's almost done, so turn on the notification bell so you don't miss it. Take care, and I'll see you down below.
You make it look easy. You gonna go up again? See how she does. She usually
win. You wanna go fly? Oh, no. Really?